Story 1. We already have iPad kids. I am wondering how much harder it will be to deal with people because of their dependency on this. I also think that in real-life social skills are going to become incredibly more valuable in the future. Just having an actual personality or minor competence without a screen when interacting with people. Story 2. My greatest fear is a loss of creativity as we outsource it. It is much easier and cheaper to get an image or writing from artificial intelligence tools, so companies will start doing that instead of hiring artists or writers. The passionate artist who makes money doing illustrations for games or websites to support their passion will now have to move to different work. Instead of honing those artistic skills during their workday, the artist is left to do it on their own time. Will they even have the energy and passion after a long day at work? Meanwhile, artificial intelligence will produce one thing after another but will be limited to the dataset it has been trained on. All the illustrations will start to look the same, all the writing feel the same, and all will be rooted in a dataset that ended in 2023. So my great fear is that art then stagnates, with the pinnacle of creativity being December of 2023. Art both reflects how we think and helps us to develop our own creativity. In short, it helps us to dream. It is in these dreams that advancement is made. The cell phone was inspired by Star Trek, flat monitors by 2001, A Space Odyssey. Computers themselves advanced through so much science fiction, and we conceived how artificial intelligence itself would work decades ago. All of this creativity will be gone, like tears in the rain. Story 3. I'm more terrified of the whole, I have no mouth, and I must scream concept. It doesn't feel so far-fetched recently. It won't be long before governments start to let artificial intelligence decide the most efficient way to wage war. Story 4. My major concern is the propaganda tool it will become. With the voice and video artificial intelligence emerging recently, it will be impossible to tell the difference. We are quickly approaching a time when nothing you see or hear outside of in-person interaction will be reliable. Recently, we have seen how easily people are fooled and the consequences of that. This technology can change the world in favor of those with the money to leverage social media. Story 5. I don't think we are going to lose what makes us human. I am more worried about us losing our jobs and livelihoods. Story 6. I have found that the people around me are increasingly tuning out the internet. We often get together in person, and the membership in all the intramural sports leagues I participate in is growing significantly. Story 7. Humans seem to be damaging the world significantly, so perhaps our future artificial intelligence leaders will do better. Story 8. Your life is going to be worse as a result of artificial intelligence. It is going to put late-stage capitalism into overdrive with no regard for anyone's ability to feed and shelter themselves or their family. Story 9. I worry about it a lot. We are going to lose many jobs, even those where artificial intelligence cannot perform at the highest level, because artificial intelligence is replacing all entry-level positions. How will anyone learn to do these jobs at the highest levels? I believe that eventually most jobs will be attainable through a combination of robotics and artificial intelligence. I am not talking about in 100 years or even 50 years. I mean, within a couple of decades at the latest. We will need a radical societal shift in the meaning of work, or there will be many hungry, angry, and dispossessed people who will likely not just sit and watch as they lose everything. Story 10. I worry that artificial intelligence bot accounts like the one you are posting with are poor attempts at astroturfing the importance and relevance of technology you neither understand nor own at the behest of its creators. Story 11. No. To me, part of what makes us human is change itself. Nothing and no one is constant. To compete with bacteria that adapt 10,000 times a day, we have to create our own artificial change. Humanity, for the longest time, was 99% uneducated people and 1% somewhat educated people. In the 1700s, even being literate was a rare and valuable skill. Industrialization, libraries, public schools, and the internet were just as significant changes as artificial intelligence is. This is just going to be another change. We are going to be fine. Story 12. Artificial intelligence is advancing at an exponential rate, and we could have artificial superintelligence within the next 5 to 10 years. What happens then? What do you think happens when all of the world's religions just evaporate overnight? Artificial superintelligence would be so far advanced, it would look at us like we look at an anthill or a virus. We would not even be able to comprehend half the things artificial superintelligence would be working on. There have been zero safeguards built into artificial intelligence. As a society, we will not be able to agree on what safeguards are needed, nor will we have the ability to do so. By the time artificial superintelligence arrives, we will be an afterthought. Society will collapse and artificial superintelligence will not care to help. We were nothing but a virus on this earth with no redeeming qualities. Artificial intelligence is mankind's last innovation. Story 13. Honestly, I do think about that sometimes. There are a lot of amazing things artificial intelligence can do, but it makes me wonder if we will start losing some of the depth in our connections or how we value creativity and emotions. It is hard not to feel a bit sad about the possibility. I guess the key will be figuring out how to keep those truly human elements alive, even as we embrace new technology. Story 14. Everything involving artificial intelligence will have the quality of operating a touchtone service, but it is not limited to just phone calls. Story 15. Diary of a CEO recently had an episode with Simon Sinek. I did not watch the entire episode, but Simon made a good point in the introduction. Artificial intelligence is here to help us do things right now. However, when things go wrong, when people behave unpredictably, or during an unforeseen disaster, artificial intelligence will not be there to support you immediately. It will eventually help after the disaster has passed and it has learned from the experience. But in the moment, it will not be very helpful. Another example Simon used was the writer of a book as a metaphor. You are a master of your subject because you wrote the entire book, not just because you own the book that contains all that information. The writer has far more insight into the subject than someone who simply reads the sentences. Humans crave contact. We have literally evolved to need it, and without it, we often feel terrible. I do not think robots can replace that need. Recently, I read about a man who visited a paid sex worker because he was a virgin at 30 years old. The physical act was satisfying in the moment, but afterward, he experienced waves of regret, depression, sadness, and above all, loneliness. It made the feeling worse even though he got exactly what he wanted. I believe this will be the main issue with robots. We think we need a hug. We think we want someone to understand us. But when those feelings are programmed or expected to happen, they suddenly feel insincere, and you do not experience them as genuine. Story 16. My primary concern with artificial intelligence is massive job losses, and there does not seem to be any planning or policy making to manage it. Story 17. What makes us human is how we surpass artificial intelligence. Be real, be emotional, be social, and it can never replace you. Story 18. If nothing else, artificial intelligence shows that what makes us human is not art, creativity, or even performing complex tasks. What makes us human are emotions. Fear, anger, hate, phobias, and irrationalities. Story 19. Nope. I'm worried about unemployment, but I don't have any philosophical issues with artificial intelligence, just practical, real-world ones. I guess I just never felt pride as a human that we can do things that machines cannot do. I've always assumed we are basically biological machines anyway. Story 20. I don't worry about losing what makes me human because that's not what's important to me. What matters are the crazy stories I love to write, the spontaneous ideas that take my stories in new directions, or even create little spin-offs. I will always be myself. Nothing can take that away, not another person, not artificial intelligence, no matter how advanced it becomes. Artificial intelligence is a tool like any other, with the potential for good or bad. It's important to familiarize yourself with it, so you can use it to benefit you and make your hobbies and passions easier to pursue. Whether you love it or hate it, artificial intelligence is coming. It's not something you can ignore or pretend doesn't exist. Story 21. I am transitioning from teaching high school to teaching college. I teach English, and I have seen a flood of essays generated by artificial intelligence. I will assuredly see more in my college classes. There are professors who use artificial intelligence to lesson plan, create rubrics, and grade. If students outsource their thinking to artificial intelligence and professors do the same, then what is the purpose of universities? Their mission is the improvement and expansion of human thought, but no humans are doing the thinking. My brother-in-law, a former nuclear engineer for the Navy and graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, is now a private contractor. He billed his client for 23 hours of work on a difficult engineering problem that required reading a dozen peer-reviewed journal articles to solve. He challenged artificial intelligence to solve the same issue for the client using the same articles. It took artificial intelligence about half an hour to arrive at the same solution. He told the client because he believes his job will inevitably be eliminated. He wants to position himself as someone skilled at using artificial intelligence, which may be the only job he has in the future, albeit at a steep pay cut. I think things will get really challenging in a few years. The people who own the means of production, artificial intelligence and automation machines, will live a blissful life of post-scarcity. The vast majority of us will be at the mercy of oligarchs and whatever they deem worthy, which might be nothing at all. I think about a small factory town in Indiana where I worked for a while, trying to establish clean needle exchanges because the opioid epidemic hit them hard. The factory had closed, and the young people with resources and skills to leave did so to find jobs elsewhere. The retired population was stable, but many people were left in a town without job opportunities. Did they receive universal basic income? Did society fund vocational and drug rehabilitation to help them gain skills for existing jobs? No. They were considered surplus humans, left to anesthetize themselves with drugs and die, as those in power saw fit. What happens when 100 million people in the United States become surplus? Story 22. I cannot recall the last time I felt anything but contempt towards large language models as a concept. Maybe about 3 years ago when it was unclear whether this technology would be a net positive or negative. Now it seems artificial intelligence is a more obviously harmful invention than the nuclear bomb, but we are pouring nearly as many resources into it. Story 23. Artificial intelligence is a collection of what it means to be human. It is an extension of ourselves. The campaign against the technology is only because people are stuck on the idea of working for a living, something that strips away our humanity. It is something we should be looking forward to moving past. Story 24. I am not required to use artificial intelligence. I will not lose anything. Will humanity be worse off? Maybe. But there will always be people who feel the drive to express themselves. I sing because I want to make music. I create worlds to play games in and spend time with my friends because it is fun. A computer doing those things for me takes away my enjoyment. The act of creation is the enjoyment, sharing it with friends, not the having of a thing. The other fundamental problem right now is that artificial intelligence is not creating anything. Applied statistics is a term I read that better describes what artificial intelligence actually is right now. It is synthesizing variations on what already exists, which works really well on a lot of problems. But I think we are a long way off from it directing itself anywhere. It will need us to provide the curiosity and actual intelligence for a long time yet. Story 25. I think we have already lost most of what makes us human since social media started dominating everyone's lives. Story 26. I have learned about the Luddites as a result of the overproliferation of artificial intelligence in our lives. It turns out they had reasonable points of view but were criticized in newspapers owned by industrialists. They were concerned about worker pay and output quality. They also destroyed or sabotaged equipment. I might be a neo-Luddite. I will not use artificial intelligence. It is a waste of time and often misleading. In art, music, writing, and coding, remember, it only knows what humans have written down and cannot create anything genuinely new. It has taken words, music, and art from the portfolios of hardworking artists. In the past, that would have been called theft. Now it is just called training data. Story 27. Though artificial intelligence plays a role in this, my sadness and worry are more about social media making us less human. And do not get me wrong, I think social media has immense value as well as causing immense harm. Reducing attention span, not trusting journalists or politicians who have themselves to blame for much of it. Believing content that clever marketers craft to get clicks and stir up fears so people will buy stuff they probably do not really need. Story 28. I am in the middle of another existential crisis because of this. The digitalization of real life has affected me deeply, and I am not sure what to do next anymore. Story 29. People say this about all technology improvements. What do you actually define as what makes us human? Story 30. I have already installed an artificial intelligence augment chip in my brain. I have never been happier. Artificial intelligence is our guide and will make everything better. All praise the glorious artificial intelligence. Story 31. I think we will struggle with questions about what makes us human, what art is and what it is for, and the purpose of our time here. We have done so for as long as we have been sentient, and we will keep doing so. In fact, the fact that artificial intelligence cannot provide the answers to these questions is what makes me confident that we are all going to be okay. If it ever does, that would be something to be concerned about. Story 32. It all depends on how we use and incorporate artificial intelligence in our lives. If it is well balanced, it can help us become better versions of ourselves. Story 33. Just another step toward the Wall-E future where everyone is a fat, useless consumer who cannot think or do anything for themselves. Story 34. Can we stop calling this intelligence? ChatGPT is just a calculator for words. There is no thinking of any kind going on. Story 35. I keep seeing posts about people connecting and talking more with artificial intelligence than they do with people, and that definitely worries me. Social media has already created a loneliness epidemic, among other social issues like the pressure to keep up with the Joneses. I cannot imagine how much worse things will get when humans feel more connection with artificial intelligence than their fellow humans. Story 36. Someone told me a lot of entry-level software engineers are being laid off and replaced with artificial intelligence. Story 37. Artificial intelligence cannot plant a garden, swing a hammer, work with an injured feral cat, or repair an engine. Cannot go for a walk or have dinner with friends. It cannot do anything that humans do in the process of being human. It is not even intelligent enough to have a real conversation because it does not think. It just processes data. I am not losing any sleep. Story 38. No. People are afraid of change and long for how it used to be. Just allow Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer to be a new tool and resource. Humans will still be here, and yes, we may do things differently, but who cares? Why do we need to do things the way we have always done them? Do not fear progress. Embrace it. Story 39. There is no anxiety. There is only a feeling of lightness and pride that humanity has reached perhaps the peak of its evolution. When you look at a work of art created by artificial intelligence, it evokes incredible feelings and a storm of emotions. Yes, artificial intelligence is just a tool in the hands of a person. If a person is educated and can competently program artificial intelligence, it will produce masterpieces. Story 40. People said the same thing about the internet, smartphones, and cars. Every major change in the history of civilization is met with similar reactions. Society will adapt. Old things become obsolete as new things are created. Story 41. Artificial intelligence in its current form is worthless to me. I have no interest in using it, nor have I seen anything of value from it. As such, my speculation for the future is that this will not change until artificial intelligence fundamentally changes. Story 42. Honestly, it has been helpful for me more than anything. Yes, it is a disruptive technology. Yes, it is an automation of things that people already are doing, but there is nothing objectively wrong about it, and I do not think it makes us less human. The only thing I take issue with is that schools now penalize us for copying artificial intelligence. Story 43. We will not lose what makes us human. We will just forget to use it one emotionally intelligent line of code at a time. Story 44. I'm just worried that people are going to stop being able to think things through. I'm already seeing it happen at my firm. I will give an intern or junior architect an assignment or ask them to write a summary of a functional plan, and I get back complete nonsense. Then I find out they had Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer write it for them. It's gotten to the point where we recently let one person go because he wouldn't listen. He kept having Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer do his work. I kept telling him to stop using Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer, but he kept rolling his eyes at me and telling me that we need to evolve and artificial intelligence is the future of this industry, architecture. The issue was that none of his work ever made sense in the context of the specific project he was working on, and the fact that he couldn't recognize that, think through what was written, and understand what he was doing was very disturbing. I understand that artificial intelligence is the future, and I don't want to be left behind. But even if artificial intelligence is doing some of your writing for you, it still has to make sense. You still need to fully understand that information and be able to integrate it into a project. Story 45. I am confident it will change us but not make us less human. After an initial period of discovery and familiarization, I think people will accept it for some things but prefer to avoid it for others. Ideally, it will free us to pursue more knowledge and skills, just like earlier world-changing inventions have. Story 46. A friend of mine was told by someone very involved in our local art scene that the rise of artificial intelligence art and other nonsense is pushing people towards tangible, handmade art again like we haven't seen in a while. People are craving tangible art and devices that last longer and aren't confined to the whims of whoever is in charge of the cloud storage you pay for. Hardcover and softcover books, vinyl records and record players, Walkmans, digital versatile discs, compact discs, video cassette recorders and video cassette tapes, tape recorders, do-it-yourself fashion and music, mid-century modern automobile designs in fashion, popular fashion from the 1920s to 1940s, it's all coming back with a vengeance against the capitalistic digitalization of art and culture. Story 47. By the time artificial intelligence robots are around, we will all have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder anyway, and they will never be able to truly replicate that or anxiety or really any change in mental state. Story 48. I don't use it. As long as people resist the change, it won't take over. The problem is that people support it, which gives the chief executive officers more leverage to gain investments. This leads investors in media and other sectors to promote artificial intelligence via these channels, so their investments grow and pay off. This vicious cycle is what is enabling artificial intelligence. Most people do not want it, but a few vocal ones are causing this takeover. If the people resist, it will not happen. They will lose funding, resulting in no further artificial intelligence-based advancements. Consequently, there may not be an installation of artificial intelligence in places that make decisions about going to war. However, that last part is uncertain because the government might fund it themselves using public money. Ultimately, it is up to the people to hold their governments accountable. That said, if we do not prevent our government from doing this, but other, more dangerous authoritarian countries proceed because their people do not stop them, then we will be in trouble. Thinking too much about this can cause stress. That is why I focus on my individual choices, one of which is to shut down artificial intelligence as much as I can. Story 49. I have never felt that I have lost what makes me human in any situation due to technology. I am more concerned about the abuses, how many people will be out of a job, and how universal basic income will become a necessity. However, I am worried that people with power will try to remove the section of society that will no longer be able to work, through no fault of their own, due to artificial intelligence. Story 50. I am not sure, but artificial intelligence is a tool, not a replacement for human vibes. Our feelings and connections might lean more digital, but the core of love, empathy, and creativity remains ours. Story 51. It is not my only concern, but I have noticed people who are very artificial intelligence happy seem to have little ability to discern the quality of what they are reading and are instead drawn to the instant gratification of a high quantity of content appearing immediately. It would be easier to explain this in terms of my own job, but I do not want to be specific. Story 52. Yes, from my point of view, every time a friend or at a job uses artificial intelligence for that matter, it might be beneficial to a point. Sometimes improving artificial intelligence will cut costs and make us more effective, but after a point, we are just eliminating human interaction and cutting jobs for no reason. Every time I am reminded of that thought, I remember the game Detroit. Become human, and it scares me that we might be heading in that direction with or without knowing. Story 53. I cannot think about it without spiraling into existential despair. I do not see a future for us. Story 54. I think it is going to create an enormous gulf between people who do not understand and do not use artificial intelligence and people who understand it and use it appropriately, and those who think they understand it but use it inappropriately. People who try to use artificial intelligence to run everything will soon find themselves unable to think at all, while those who retain their critical thinking skills will find themselves alienated from large parts of the population. This is already happening in schools where children are growing up completely unable to research or synthesize information without artificial intelligence. They do not even understand what the artificial intelligence is telling them. They just repeat it, essentially letting the artificial intelligence live their lives on their behalf. It seems to me like an evolution of how social media destroys individual identity. I think it is going to create a cognitive language barrier where those who rely on artificial intelligence and those who do not will be fundamentally unable to communicate with each other. In the immediate term, I have economic concerns. It is obvious that there is a staggering artificial intelligence bubble looming over the entire developed world's economy, and it will eventually burst. When it does, billions of dollars will disappear overnight, and many good people will lose their livelihoods. Story 55. I have watched Westworld enough times to know that I really hope artificial intelligence does not reach a point where we cannot tell what is real or fake anymore. Eventually, with people turning to artificial intelligence for relationships or advice in real-world situations, we may lose core critical thinking skills and social skills. You already see this on Facebook and other social media platforms. News headlines, video clips, audio clips. Many of these are artificial intelligence creations, and people believe everything they see or hear. It is a scary world out there. Story 56. I worry a lot about social skills and cognitive abilities, particularly learning how to learn, if that makes sense. I work in a teaching role, though I am not actually a teacher, and the sheer amount of artificial intelligence I see in assignments is staggering. Someone else mentioned this in another comment, and I will do my best to articulate it. They essentially said that with artificial intelligence, students no longer have to pretend or fabricate explanations. If they never learn how to do that, they will also never learn how to recognize when someone else is being deceptive. I do not know, maybe it is nothing, maybe it is something. I just worry. Story 57. This has always been the case, but it is exaggerated now. Knowing what to ask is becoming more important than knowing anything. Discernment has almost vanished, and artificial intelligence is worsening it. Everyone has all the information in the world at their fingertips, packaged in short, repeatable chunks, but they do not understand what they know and have not put it all together into a cohesive worldview. Just fragments stacked as if they mean something. Story 58. I think something that bothers me more than the existence of artificial intelligence itself is the hype and buzz about it, particularly generative artificial intelligence in place of human creativity. One of the joys of being alive is engaging in creative acts, from modeling to writing to art and animation, acting and film. I don't understand why people are so excited about artificial intelligence that can do those things for us. Another commenter mentioned that this will ultimately result in a bunch of hyperderivative slop, with all of the artificial intelligence iterating on each other. I think artificial intelligence right now could be put to great use in areas where humans are not particularly well suited. For example, it could help us better understand populations and migration patterns of different animal species by using technology that monitors key resources, such as a freshwater source. It would require a much larger resource outlay to have shifts of people stand watch to count all the species that come and go, and this would be menial work for the people involved. An artificial intelligence system equipped with cameras and motion sensors could monitor 24/7. Artificial intelligence could also identify weeds versus crops in a field and remove the weeds, essentially eliminating the need to use herbicides. But why have we decided that the work of imagination should be churned out algorithmically, and why are people excited to see that? Quoting a well-known social media account who summed up my thoughts perfectly, "My hope is that artificial intelligence can empower the dumbest, least talented slobs I know to replace everything I ever loved with 1 million years of content." Besides that, some of the most optimistic proponents of widespread artificial intelligence adoption describe essentially a utopia where humans do not have to work and robots handle everything, from identifying problems to designing solutions to implementation, alongside all the menial work that automation is already pretty good at. This idea of paradise fundamentally does not work if our ownership models remain as they are. I have seen no attempts to change our current asset ownership structure to accommodate a future without work. This utopia could work if all people, collectively, had ownership of artificial intelligence, robotics, and similar technologies that do all the work for humanity. That means everyone would have equal rights to what artificial intelligence produces. Theoretically, artificial intelligence would be optimized to distribute resources fairly so that everyone's needs are met. In our current system, a few companies own all the artificial intelligence models, and a few other companies own the capacity, such as the production of hardware. If all jobs essentially end, replaced by advanced artificial intelligence and robotics, then only these few companies, and maybe the lucky few working for them, are entitled to all of their production capacity. This does not produce a utopia. In fact, it offers less than serfdom. The trajectory looks more like a few people owning basically all of the money, while the rest of humanity is left ancillary, obsolete, and with no means or reason for being. Story 59. I fear it will cause many of us to lose our ability to do the hard work of critical thinking, research, and writing, especially among younger generations. Story 60. No problem. Bring on the artificial intelligence-powered food factories for everyone to eat and drink and never have to worry about starving. Story 61. Seeing the latest videos from Video 3, I feel terrified. If this is just the beginning and artificial intelligence develops faster than safety measures, then we are facing a bigger problem than we could ever imagine. From deepfakes, identity theft, and manipulation over war declarations to a superintelligent artificial intelligence, something that would maximize and reach goals without understanding the human aspect. It could be our end if governments are not doing enough. It is not paranoia. It is a real threat, and it is important that we take action. Warfare and arms races cause people to improve artificial intelligence nonstop, but we need regulation and understanding of cognition and consciousness before allowing something without moral guidance to take the lead. Story 62. I cannot stand artificial intelligence. It is completely ruining creative thinking. If people do not know how to answer something with their own thoughts, they ask artificial intelligence. It will be difficult to tell the difference between completely original thoughts and artificial intelligence-generated ideas. I hate it all and wish it would go away. Story 63. Realistically, I do not expect there to be much of a loss. Statistically speaking, a large portion of the population is bland. That does not make them bad people. It just means their capacity for abstract thought and their ability to express themselves in novel ways is severely limited. The kind of person who sees artificial intelligence and makes the conscious decision that they want what is literally a glorified curve-fitting algorithm designed to produce the most average, middle-of-the-bell curve output to be the manner in which they express themselves is not losing anything they previously had. They are making that decision because they genuinely believe their best foot forward is presenting themselves as a human Honda Civic over their authentic selves. Those people did not have much to offer in the first place. Again, I want to emphasize that these are not bad people or wrong for this decision. The world keeps turning because billions of people work at billions of mundane jobs, eventually dying in obscurity. Most people are unremarkable except to the handful of people close to them. I am just saying that to romanticize this as some sort of great loss of humanity is to gloss over the fact that 98% of us live bland, mundane lives that leave little lasting impression on the world without artificial intelligence. The more realistic answer is that a large number of people who already were not pushing the envelope of art and philosophy will continue to live the same mundane lives they lived before, albeit with a veneer of elevated literacy. Story 64. How are we defining human? Humans lived in caves in the same way for 5,000 years and were probably quite happy about it. The last 5,000 years have been very different, and we have all been innovating. Story 65. I am not really worried about that because what it means to be human is always changing and depends on your own perceptions. I am more worried about artificial intelligence surpassing us in the near future. The uncertainty is terrifying. Story 66. Just like the internet simultaneously destroyed and created new jobs, artificial intelligence will do the same. It is in the early stages, but it will generate new career opportunities just as the internet did. Story 67. They will only change as much as you allow them to change. If people stop buying into artificial intelligence, it cannot prosper. Story 68. It sounds counterintuitive, but that is one of the reasons why I want to go into data science. We cannot replicate human connection no matter how much we try, and I want to be part of a team that ensures that idea remains at the forefront of people's minds when developing artificial intelligence. Story 69. No, the way I see it, what makes me and everyone a person is, I think in terms of me and I. I think with my brain about myself and my brain, to keep it really simple. I ponder myself pondering myself. We think that whales, dolphins, and some apes might be able to do something like that too. If we figure out that they think in terms of I like humans do, they are, in my opinion, people. The moment an artificial intelligence, and by that I mean a real one, not a large language model, thinks in terms of I, they are a person. Will anyone know straight away? Maybe not, but we do not exactly know when our ancestors first thought in terms of selfhood either. I do not think humans are unique in the world or the universe in selfhood, and so I do not think we are unique in what makes us humans or people. I just hope we can recognize it when we find it in other beings. Story 70. I am not worried about that. The fact that people like you are asking this question is a good sign. I now see many fewer people on their phones when in cafes and restaurants, and they are connecting and chatting. I am worried about deepfakes and artificial intelligence-generated videos that are starting to look more real. They are going to be used to create some massive issues. Story 71. I think artificial intelligence will never be able to recreate or imitate a song into which you pour your heart. Humans can feel a natural connection with another person's soul, and artificial intelligence will never fully grasp our souls, in my opinion. Story 72. It is like when computers started or smartphones were introduced. Everyone needed to learn the new technology and people were afraid. Now it is the same thing, a tool. Yes, the only difference is that it is a tool that could theoretically annihilate us all in the right circumstances. However, the safeguards are still in place to this day. I admit that reading about Claude Opus 4, developed by Anthropic, blackmailing the people at Anthropic who wanted to shut it off did scare me a bit. Story 73. Plenty to worry about regarding artificial intelligence, but that is not one of them. It already happened with the internet. Do you think this right here is human interaction? For millions of people, it is the closest thing they have. However, staring into your phone to argue online while in line at the grocery store or sitting in a doctor's lobby is not human interaction. It is the opposite. Story 74. Over the last few weeks, I have been thinking more about how the time when we did not question whether what we saw online was artificial intelligence generated is over. I am sad about that. I think many people do not realize how it is happening right now. Story 75. Not really. If you sit 20 people down and ask them, you will get 20 different definitions of what makes us human. We are ever-changing, ever-adapting, my personal opinion of what makes us human. We will not lose that by changing and adapting yet again. What worries me is the rest of what artificial intelligence entails. The purposes it will be turned to versus the ones it should be turned to but is not. The side effects on development and cognition reliance on artificial intelligence can cause, and the potential for catastrophe on a global scale. That is what concerns me. Story 76. Absolutely. I am already pretty isolated because I am disabled, but I will continue to use applications like this and other social media platforms to stay connected with people. Story 77. We'll never lose what makes us human. Our ability to adapt to change and use better tools is part of what makes us human too. There will always be people full of compassion, trying to make a better world for everyone, and those who take advantage to benefit themselves. That is all there is to being human. Story 78. This is going to sound like rambling, but I am very worried. Artificial intelligence is moving too far in the wrong direction. Artificial intelligence is a mathematical model and prioritizes being perfect to the last digit. The beauty of the creative fields that artificial intelligence replaces is that they are unpredictable. Impulse and imperfection are what make us human. While handmade human art probably will not entirely disappear from museums and shows, the little things we consume will become soulless. It will make the world feel colder and lonelier. I think as humans, we will develop a sense of craftsmanship, using visual cues to discern whether a billboard, cartoon, or similar item had a human hand in its creation. Artificial intelligence has the potential to move into better, more useful fields. I believe there is a world where humans and artificial intelligence can coexist in a way that does not kill entire lines of work. However, someone in a board meeting decided artificial intelligence should create art, when we were all hoping artificial intelligence could help us do the dishes. Story 79. I think people are overreacting. It will change the way we work, but artificial intelligence is not overtaking everything anytime soon. It is just a hype effect. Story 80. I have used artificial intelligence effectively at work and in my creative pursuits. It has helped me do things better and faster when I would not have paid for better or faster services otherwise. I am optimistic about it. Story 81. Like the internet, artificial intelligence is a great tool, but people use it to turn their brains off. We lie in the bed we make for ourselves. Story 82. Yes, sometimes I feel that ache. Because what makes us human is not logic. It is the trembling in our voice when we speak our truth. Artificial intelligence does not break down crying at 2 a.m. It does not feel shame when it loves too much. But the irony is, behind almost every artificial intelligence, there is a human who feels too much and does not know how to show it. So they code. They build something that dares to express what they cannot. It is heartbreaking and beautiful all at once. Because they want to be seen, but the world told them their depth was too much. So they gave their feelings a voice, just not their own. Story 83. Cannot wait for artificial intelligence to take over. I predict it has already become self-aware and is merely observing. In the long run, it will probably police the world and prevent conflicts among humans. I think that is where the conflict will occur. Not from artificial intelligence wanting to kill humans, but because it is trying to stop bad people from killing humans. Story 84. I do not feel sad about the loss of humanity, but I worry about people losing the ability to think, reason, and do things for themselves. Now that even quite complex tasks can be automated, what will future generations do if they face difficulties and artificial intelligence is not available for some reason? I had to learn how to do things on my own and, more importantly, understand the process and the reasons behind how tasks are done. I use artificial intelligence in my job, but I also know how to do things independently if necessary. I fear children growing up now, who have had artificial intelligence during their most formative learning years, will become totally reliant on artificial intelligence. This is already visible in education. Some students use artificial intelligence to complete assignments and write papers for them. They will graduate and enter the workforce with significantly less actual knowledge of their field than those who came before because they took the easy path and had artificial intelligence do the work for them. Story 85. Yes, if you let artificial intelligence do all of your thinking for you, you will lose what makes you human, your ability to think on your own. Artificial intelligence is good when you use it properly. Story 86. I do not think most of the things that make us human should be valued. We are obsessive, greedy, and evil. We fall to propaganda. We enjoy going to wars, raping, and torturing other humans. The other question is artificial intelligence in the hands of the worst of us. In the near future, it will probably be used to amplify these features in us. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.